Bob Monroe was one of the most entertaining people you could meet. He just had a great sense of fun about him. Just driving up and down the mountain with him was plenty of fun. And he made the hero's journey on a daily basis, going up to the mountaintop and getting the vision and bringing it back to us. The hero has many forms, and one of them is the trickster and comedian. And that was definitely one that he enjoyed playing. One of the advantages of the trickster is they sort of stir things up and get people to ask questions and have their own thoughts. They don't tell you what to think. They just ask that you do think once in a while. So he stirred things up that way. It was a kind of fill-in-the-blank exercise. Here's the blank and you fill it in. And that was the beauty of suggestion. He was working with people, providing a little bit of structure that would allow them to create the meanings for themselves. We're here today because Bob did one very simple thing. What was that one simple thing he did? What did he do that started the chain of events that produced all this? He paid attention to his own experience, to his own inner life. Many other things had to happen, many other wonderful people had to come into it, but everything started because he paid attention to his own experience, to his own inner life. He looked inward at the unusual experience he was having and went with it and tried to walk and talk with it and understand. He reflected on his experiences and listened to what they meant. Many other people had had out-of-body experiences and other anomalous experiences, but Bob was different in how he reacted to them. Instead of ignoring them or dismissing them, he took careful notes about what was happening to him. Because he did that, because he paid attention to them and put them in an objective form, others were able to see what he had experienced. Because he kept a written record of his experiences, Charlie Tart was able to see the value of them, and he in turn could pass it on to an editor and publisher, and the book could be published. Because that book existed, other people could be drawn to Bob who would help get the Institute started. And because of the book, a wide audience was reached who would come to learn how to experience their own adventures at the Institute. So we're here in a very real sense because someone bothered to write down his ephemeral experiences instead of dismissing them. So this may give you some inspiration, to pay attention to your own inner world. And that was the most consistent drumbeat of Bob's message. Pay attention to your own inner life. Pay attention to your own experience. Find out for yourself. My first memories of Bob has for me a kind of timeless, eternal quality. It was as if I picked up on his energy signature, his ident, as he called it, even though I was just a kid. I was probably 6 or 7 years old and remember playing a game in our driveway with my friend, Pat Dalton. And this is the kind of thing kids did before there was internet or iPads. Basically, we were throwing sticks at each other. And I realized that if I threw it just where his feet were, he could jump. And if I threw it just right and he jumped just right, the stick would bounce under his feet and keep going. A challenging but cooperative game. And it was a nice evening as we were doing this, and I looked over and I noticed sitting on the stone wall there was my Uncle Bob. And even at that age, I was struck by something different in the way he was. There was a kind of serenity, a real peace. And the novelty of an adult coming out just to enjoy the evening, and I suppose some enjoyment in watching this silly game we were playing. So one element was the peace, and the other, I think, was the twinkle. Not just a twinkle in his eye, but it was as if his whole body were a twinkle. And it was just sort of waiting for an opportunity to chuckle. He chuckled often. And he sat there for quite some time smoking. He didn't have a mantra, but he did have a pack of cigarettes. The cigarette was his mantra. The cigarette of equanimity and the coffee cup of receptivity were his attributes. And as it gradually grew darker, he sort of faded until there was just in the darkness the orange tip of his cigarette that would bloom from time to time. So it wasn't that he was doing anything, but it made an impression on me. And I think it was the sense of someone who savored things, and very often quite simple things, but things that were in the moment. And that unusual peacefulness and the twinkle. He seemed to be having as much fun as we were in this simple play. The orange light of a cigarette, the tart smell of boxwood, the scrape of a chair on flagstones, those traces of a serene presence. The time I spent with him had an eternal quality, and I remember those times clearly. It's almost like when you make a foray into a different state or out of the body, the memory of those things stays very fresh. It's like they happened yesterday. And the time I spent with him it kind of had some of that eternal quality. And that's something I know Lori commented on in the time she spent with him and other people as well. In fact, his presence, just being in the same room with him, seemed to really open up doors and windows and people to the higher self. And I think part of what may have been happening is that when one person has found a hole in the monkey cage, as Bob said, that's how he described it, that he was the monkey who found a hole in the cage. It seems to change their consciousness in a way that other people can pick up on. He wasn't looking for it to get outside the cage of our ordinary mind, but he found it, and after that he wanted to share it. And the sharing sometimes seemed to happen almost instantaneously. It was as if he had opened up a frequency in his own consciousness, and when other people came in contact with him, it resonated with them, and it opened up the same frequency and the same capacities and enlarged perspectives in them. And when you're out, and move into different situations, just be aware, that your very presence may bring that kind of vibrancy and a set of new possibilities that could open up things for people that you come in contact with. Bob was somebody, when he came into a room, the room changed. And that's something you can do.